I used to believe that love was a fortress, something impenetrable with walls built of trust and companionship. My wife, Sarah, and I had spent nearly a decade building just that, a life intertwined with dreams of family and futures filled with laughter. We had gone through plenty together, but nothing prepared me for the devastation that was about to unfold. It all started when we decided to try for a baby. After months of trying unsuccessfully, we sought help from a fertility specialist, Dr. Mason. He was reputed, friendly, and seemed genuinely invested in our journey. Sarah was excited. She had always envisioned herself as a mother, and I was eager to support her. Those early days felt like a new beginning, the start of a life-changing chapter. We were optimistic, even with the stress of appointments and medications. But as the months passed, I noticed subtle shifts in Sarah. She became distant. The once warm conversations turned into conversations filled with distractions, as if she was physically present but mentally checked out. I brushed it off, thinking it was the stress of the treatments weighing on her. I wanted to be understanding, to shoulder the burden with her so. I kept my mouth shut, hoping it was just a phase. I remember the night everything changed. It was a Thursday, the kind of evening that felt too quiet. Sarah had been late coming home from an appointment. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. After a couple of hours of anxious waiting, she finally walked through the door, a little too flustered and out of breath. She offered up a hasty excuse about being caught up in the office, reviewing charts with Dr. Mason. Something about the way she said it felt off, but I dismissed my gut feeling. She had always been a bit of a storyteller when it came to the details of her day, always painting a rosy picture. But that wasn't the only sign. I found a text message on her phone one afternoon while she was in the shower. It was a series of messages between Sarah and Dr. Mason that made my blood run cold. They were supposed to be discussing treatment plans, but instead, they were planning a late-night meeting at his office. The way she wrote to him was intimate, and it was clear they were crossing professional boundaries. It left a bitter taste in my mouth, and for the first time I began to feel the weight of betrayal. The day I confronted her was like a tidal wave crashing down on me. I couldn't keep my composure when she came home that evening, her smile faltering under the intensity of my gaze. I threw the phone at her, demanding an explanation. She played innocent at first, claiming it was just a misunderstanding, that they were discussing medical charts late at night. But the more she spoke, the more her words felt hollow. I pressed her and the facade began to crack. "Sarah, I'm not an idiot," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "You're sleeping with him, aren't you? You're cheating on me." Her reaction was immediate. A mix of anger and denial flashed across her face. "How dare you accuse me of that? You think you can just throw accusations around?" She was defensive, her words laced with venom. It felt like she was trying to paint me as the villain in my own story. "But everything adds up. You've been distant, evasive. I found your texts, Sarah. You're lying to me." She paused, her jaw clenching as she processed the evidence. And in that moment, all I could see was the betrayal written across her face, a mixture of guilt and defiance. I felt my heart shatter as she tried to spin her tale, insisting it was all about the treatment, that I was misinterpreting everything. But I couldn't swallow her excuses anymore. It was clear she wasn't the person I thought I married. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train, anger morphing into sadness. How could she betray me like this? We had dreams, plans, a family we wanted to build together. Now all of it lay in ruins. The fortress I believed in was nothing but a mirage. I felt lost, confused, and betrayed. As I sat there, my mind racing, I realized I had to make a choice. I could either try to salvage what was left of our marriage or start planning my exit strategy. I was tired of feeling like I was living a lie. I needed to think clearly to decide what the next step would be. But for now, I had to let the full weight of reality wash over me. Heart was broken and I was left to pick up the pieces. The air in our house felt heavy after that confrontation. I spent hours, no, days, trying to process what had happened. I couldn't shake the images of Sarah and Dr. Mason together from my mind. I replayed every moment, every laugh, every shared smile, and every "I love you" with a new lens of betrayal. It felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. When I finally fell asleep, I found no comfort in my dreams. I was haunted by images of Sarah whispering sweet nothings to someone else, her laughter ringing in my ears, but this time it wasn't directed at me. It was terrifying, and I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding like a drum. I realized then that I was spiraling and the emotions were consuming me whole. The next day I took leave from work. I needed space to think. I sat alone in our living room, the silence suffocating, staring at the walls that had witnessed our life together. I thought about all the plans we had made, family vacations, home projects, and all those discussions about baby names. I was drowning in memories, each one stinging like a fresh wound. I knew I had to confront her again. The initial confrontation had left too many unanswered questions. I needed clarity, even if it meant more heartache. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky a fiery orange, Sarah returned home. The tension between us was palpable, an electric charge that hung in the air. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. She nodded reluctantly, her eyes downcast. We sat across from each other, the space between us feeling like an abyss. "I need you to tell me the truth, Sarah," I said, my voice firm. "What's really going on with you and Dr. Mason?" She took a deep breath, her expression shifting from defiance to resignation. "It's not what you think," she began, but I cut her off. "No more lies. I've heard enough of those," I said, my anger bubbling to the surface again. "I found your text messages. They are not just professional, and you know it. You're in love with him, aren't you?" The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment it felt as if the world had come to a standstill. Sarah's expression darkened and she finally met my gaze. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We had a moment after a particularly stressful appointment and it just happened. I didn't know how to stop it. So you just decided to throw everything we built away." I shot back, hurt and disbelief coursing through me. "What about our dreams? What about us?" "I still love you," she insisted, but her words fell flat. "But this is different. I can't explain it. It's like he understands me in ways you don't." That stung more than anything. "Really? You think he understands you better than I do, after everything we've been through?" I could feel anger boiling over. I was trying to maintain composure, but the betrayal was too raw. "It's not about that," she said, her voice rising. "You don't understand what it's like to go through this fertility process. I felt so alone, and Dr. Mason was there for me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The very man who was supposed to guide us through our struggles was the one breaking us apart. "So what now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You want me to just accept this and move on as if nothing happened?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you, but I also don't know how to navigate this. Sarah, you gave him your heart while I was trying to build a family with you. It's not something I can just overlook," I replied, feeling more heartache constrict my chest. I stood up, needing to move, needing to escape the hopelessness of our conversation. As I paced the room, I took a deep breath and thought about my next steps. I needed to set boundaries. I couldn't let her manipulate me with tears and guilt. "I can't stay in this house if you're seeing him," I said finally, my voice cold. "I need space to figure out what I want." "Wait, what do you mean?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. "I mean I'm leaving for a while," I replied. "I need time away from this, from you. I can't be around you while you're still involved with him." The look on her face was a mix of realization and desperation, and for a fleeting moment I felt a pang of sympathy for her. But it quickly subsided as I remembered the betrayal, the hurt, and the anger. I packed a bag and left that night, lodging at a friend's place. I felt a sense of freedom mixed with sadness, as if I was both escaping a trap and stepping into an unknown world. The emotional toll was exhausting. I had to navigate feelings of betrayal, anger, sadness, and confusion all at once, and it felt like an insurmountable mountain to climb. As I lay in bed at my friend's house, staring at the ceiling, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could either wallow in bitterness or begin carving out a new path for myself. I chose the latter. I needed to reclaim my life, my happiness, and my dignity. I had a long road ahead, and it started with me finally facing the reality of what Sarah had done. It was time for me to find my strength and figure out what I truly wanted moving forward. My first few days away from Sarah were a whirlwind of emotions. I spent time at my friend Jake's apartment, surrounded by his supportive presence, but even his attempts to lighten the mood felt futile. I was in a fog, everything felt surreal. The betrayal was fresh, and I often found my mind drifting back to memories of happier times, which only intensified my sadness. Jake, bless him, tried to distract me. "Let's hit the bar, man. You need to unwind," he suggested on that first Saturday. I reluctantly agreed, hopping a few drinks would numb the pain. As we sat at the bar, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing a part of myself. I was drowning in thoughts of Sarah and the life we were supposed to build together. After a couple of drinks, the alcohol started to dull the sharp edges of my pain, but it also made the truth more difficult to confront. "You know it's her loss," Jake said, trying to lift my spirits. "You deserve better than someone who would cheat on you during such a vulnerable time." "Yeah, I guess," I replied, staring into my drink. "But it doesn't feel that way. I just feel lost." I couldn't stop thinking about how Sarah had broken my trust, shattered the love we had built over the years. I decided to take a walk the next day, hoping the fresh air would clear my mind. As I strolled through the park, watching families play together, my heart sank even deeper. I saw fathers with their children, mothers lovingly guiding their little ones, and I felt an overwhelming sense of longing. Those were the moments I had envisioned for myself and Sarah. Now it felt like those dreams had been torn from my grasp. Still, I knew I couldn't wallow forever. I had to make a decision about what I wanted moving forward. It was time to face the reality of my situation. So I reached out to Sarah for the first time since I left. I texted her, asking if we could meet to talk. She responded quickly, her eagerness evident in her reply. "Yes, please. I've been so worried about you. I miss you." I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, guilt, and a lingering anger. We agreed to meet at a cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of home bearing down on us. When I arrived, I spotted her sitting at a table, her fingers nervously playing with her hair. She looked like a ghost of the woman I once knew, pale and anxious. As soon as she saw me, her face lit up with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly as I took my seat. "Let's just get to it, Sarah," I replied, cutting through the pleasantries. "We need to talk about what happened. No more lies, no more excuses." She nodded, her expression turning serious. "I know I messed up," she began, her voice trembling. "I was overwhelmed by everything, the pressure of IVF, the stress at work, and I let myself get too close to Dr. Mason. I never meant for it to go this far." "I don't care about your excuses," I shot back, feeling my anger flare again. "You made a choice. You chose to betray me when I needed you the most. You cheated on me, and that can't be undone." "I know. I'm so sorry," she pleaded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I didn't think it would lead to this. I thought I could control it, but I was wrong. I realize now how stupid I was." Her tears felt rehearsed, as if she had practiced this speech in front of a mirror. And yet as they fell, I felt a pang of compassion, though it quickly gave way to the anger that had been simmering beneath the surface. "If you're truly sorry," I said, leaning in closer, "then why haven't you ended it with him? Why are you still seeing him?" "Because I don't know how," she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. "I don't know what to do. I'm scared of losing you, but I also feel trapped." "Trapped?" I repeated incredulously. "You're the one who jumped into this mess. You need to decide what you want. Do you want me or do you want him? You can't have both." She looked down at her lap, her resolve crumbling. "I want you. I really do, but this is so complicated. I don't know how to fix it." "Complicated?" I scoffed. "You made your choice when you decided to betray our vows. Now you need to own it. For once, be honest with yourself. What do you really want?" The silence that followed was heavy with tension. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the battle between desire and guilt. Finally, she spoke. "I don't want to lose you. I love you, but I also feel this pull towards him. I don't know how to explain it." "Then we have a problem," I said quietly, "because I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out. I deserve better than to be someone's second choice." The look on her face was a mixture of despair and realization, and it struck me then how far we had fallen. The love that had once felt so secure now hung by a thread. I had never imagined our relationship would come to this, a space filled with tension, confusion, and distrust. "I need time to think," I said finally, standing up. "I can't do this anymore today." "Please don't go," she begged, reaching out to grab my arm. I pulled away, unwilling to let her touch me. I need to figure out my life without you. In it for a while, you have to understand that. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The fog began to lift, and I realized that I didn't need to navigate this alone. I had friends, support, and a chance to rebuild my life. I may have lost Sarah, but I was determined not to lose myself in the process. There was a long road ahead, but I knew I had to take it, step by painful step. My heart was heavy, but I felt a flicker of hope, a glimmer that maybe, just maybe, I would emerge stronger from this ordeal. The following days were a blur of reflection and self-discovery. I spent a lot of time alone, processing the emotional wreckage of my marriage. Each day felt like a new challenge, a test of my resilience. I would have moments of despair when I'd think about Sarah and how she had betrayed our love, but I also found moments of clarity, tiny sparks of hope that urged me to move forward, no matter how painful that might be. I started focusing on what I could control. I got back into my hobbies, revisiting old passions. That had taken a backseat while Sarah and I navigated the fertility treatments. I picked up my guitar and began to play again, feeling the music wash over me like a balm. I went for long runs in the early morning, letting the crisp air fill my lungs as I let my thoughts run free. It was cathartic and reminded me that I could still find joy, even amidst heartbreak. I also leaned more on my friends. Jake was a constant support, always ready with a listening ear and a few drinks to take the edge off. He encouraged me to hit the dating scene again, but the thought of dating felt overwhelming. I wasn't ready to meet someone new while my heart was still so raw. I needed time to heal, to come to terms with my feelings before opening myself up to anyone else. One evening, as I sat on Jake's couch, I decided to face the inevitable, talking to Sarah again. It had been nearly 2 weeks since our last meeting, and I felt the weight of unresolved emotions pressing down on me. I texted her, suggesting we meet again to discuss things. I wasn't sure what I wanted from that meeting, but I knew I couldn't keep running away. When we met at the same cafe, the atmosphere felt different. It was as if an invisible wall separated us, a barrier built from broken trust and lingering feelings. Sarah looked nervous, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. It was clear she had been crying, her eyes were puffy and red, but she put on a brave face as I approached. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, her voice shaky. "I've missed you." "Let's cut to the chase," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I've been doing a lot of thinking and I need to know where we stand." She took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto mine. "I've been doing a lot of thinking too." I realized how much I took our relationship for granted. There was a sincerity in her voice that I hadn't heard in a while, but I still felt guarded. "I need you to be honest with me, Sarah. Do you want to be with me, or do you want to be with him?" The question hung heavy in the air, and I could almost see the gears turning in her mind as she processed it. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been so confused. I made a terrible mistake and I hate myself for it. Dr. Mason was there during a weak moment, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. Love isn't just a word you throw around when things get tough," I said, feeling the anger bubbling to the surface again. "You made a choice to be with him when I needed you the most. You didn't think about the impact of your actions on our future." "I know," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I messed up and I'm sorry, but I want to fix this. I want to make it work if you'll let me." "Fix this?" I scoffed. "It's not that simple, Sarah. You can't just expect me to forget everything. You've shattered my trust, and it's going to take more than a few tears to mend that." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she pleaded, desperation in her voice. "I love you and I want to prove it. I'll cut ties with Dr. Mason and we can go to counseling. We can work through this." The sincerity in her eyes caught me off guard, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. But then I remembered all the pain, the betrayal, the lies. "And what if you're just saying this because you're scared of being alone?" I countered. "What if you're just trying to alleviate your guilt?" "I'm not, I really mean it," she insisted. "I want to change and I want to be with you. Please, just give me a chance." The conflict inside me was overwhelming. Part of me longed for the familiar comfort of Sarah's embrace, the love we had shared. But the other part of me screamed to protect my heart from further hurt. "I can't just jump back in without knowing you're serious about this," I said, my voice steady, but my heart was racing. If you want to rebuild what we had, it's going to take time. I need to see real changes. I understand, she said, wiping away her tears. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't give up on us yet. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. Okay, but this isn't a promise of reconciliation. We need to start slow, and I need space to process everything. I can't jump back into this right away. I felt a small sense of relief as I set those boundaries, knowing I was finally standing up for myself. We spent the next hour talking, sharing our feelings, and slowly peeling back the layers of hurt that had built up between us. It wasn't easy. There were moments of anger and sadness, but also moments of reflection and understanding. I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, buried beneath the mistakes and betrayal. As we left the cafe, I felt a little lighter, as if I had taken a step toward healing. There were no guarantees, no easy answers, but I realized that I had to trust myself to navigate this journey. I didn't know what the future held, but I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps with time and effort we could mend the wounds, but it would require honesty, vulnerability, and commitment from both of us. I walked away from our meeting with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it. I had learned that love was not just a fortress, it was also a fragile flower that needed nurturing. While I wasn't sure if Sarah and I would find our way back to each other, I was determined to find my own way forward, regardless of the outcome. The days turned into weeks, and as I navigated the rocky terrain of my feelings for Sarah, I realized the journey ahead would be anything but straightforward. After our last meeting, we had agreed to take things slow. She promised to cut ties with Dr. Mason and focus on rebuilding our relationship, but I needed to see real changes. I couldn't allow myself to fall back into the same patterns that had led to this mess in the first place. I threw myself into work and my personal pursuits. I found solace in creating music, pouring my emotions into guitar riffs and lyrics. It became a therapeutic outlet that helped me process my feelings. I also started reconnecting with friends, going out more, and even pushing myself to meet new people. I knew I had to rebuild my self-esteem, and surrounding myself with supportive individuals helped. Meanwhile, Sarah was making an effort to reach out. She sent me texts, checking in and sharing snippets of her day. At first, I appreciated her attempts to stay connected, but I was cautious. Each message reminded me of the hurt and betrayal, and it was difficult to reconcile that with the warmth I once felt for her. Eventually, we agreed to meet again, this time at my favorite spot in the park. I arrived early, taking a moment to collect my thoughts and prepare for whatever conversation lay ahead. I was still conflicted about the possibility of reconciliation. Could I truly forgive her and rebuild our relationship, or was I just setting myself up for further heartbreak? When Sarah arrived, she looked nervous but determined. She approached with a small bouquet of flowers, an olive branch of sorts. "I thought these might brighten your day," she said, holding them out with a hopeful smile. "Thanks," I replied, taking the flowers but not allowing myself to be swayed by the gesture. "Let's sit." We found a bench under a sprawling oak tree, and after a moment of silence, she spoke. "I've been reflecting a lot since we last spoke. I know I messed up, and I've been going to therapy to understand why I made those choices." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by her admission. "Therapy, that's a big step." "It is," she said, her voice steady. I realized how much I was avoiding my own feelings and how that led to me seeking validation from Dr. Mason. "I'm committed to working on myself, and I hope that can show you how serious I am about wanting to fix things between us." I nodded slowly, trying to gauge the sincerity of her words. "Words are one thing, Sarah. Actions are another. I need to see that you mean what you're saying. It's not enough to just say you want to change." "I understand," she said, her eyes earnest. "I've reached out to Dr. Mason and told him I can't see him anymore. No more appointments, no more communication. I'm done with that chapter of my life." The admission surprised me. "You actually told him that?" "Yes." I realized that I was using him as a crutch to escape from my own insecurities, and I don't want that anymore. I want to be accountable for my actions. For the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was a small spark, but it was there. "What else do you plan to do?" I asked, leaning in. You've taken the first step, but it's going to require a lot more than just cutting ties with him. I want us to go to couples therapy, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I think it could help us communicate better and address the issues we've been ignoring. I want us to rebuild our relationship on a stronger foundation. The thought of couples therapy made me apprehensive. Part of me was scared of reopening wounds, but another part recognized that it could be a beneficial step if we were both committed to the process. I'll think about it, I said slowly. But it's going to take time. She nodded, understanding the weight of my words. I'm willing to put in the effort. I miss you every day and I want to fight for us. After that conversation, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I still had my doubts, but I was willing to give her the chance to prove her commitment. We began to meet regularly, navigating conversations about our feelings, our dreams, and our fears. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, anger, and sadness. But we were communicating, and that was a step in the right direction. As the weeks went on, I noticed changes in Sarah. She seemed more present, genuinely engaged in our conversations. She shared her therapy insights with me, and I could see her working to unpack the issues that had led her down that destructive path. There were still moments of doubt. Memories of her betrayal would creep in and threaten to unravel my progress, but I was determined to push through. The decision to explore couples therapy felt like the next logical step. After some hesitation, I agreed to give it a try. We found a therapist who specialized in relationship dynamics, and our first session was both nerve-wracking and enlightening. The therapist guided us through discussions about trust, vulnerability, and communication. Each session forced us to confront our feelings head-on. I shared my pain, my anger, and my fears. About the future, watching Sarah break down and truly feel the gravity of her actions was difficult, but it also felt necessary. We began to peel back the layers of our relationship, understanding the patterns we had fallen into and the reasons behind Sarah's decisions. As the months passed, I found myself shifting from a place of anger and resentment to one of cautious optimism. There were no guarantees, but I realized that rebuilding trust would take time, effort, and vulnerability from both of us. We started to forge new memories together, small outings, shared experiences, and each moment felt like a step toward healing. I began to believe that love could be rebuilt, but it would require work on both our parts. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was willing to try, to hope, and to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. It wouldn't happen overnight, but I understood now that love wasn't just a fortress. It was also a journey filled with challenges and growth. I was ready to embrace that journey, no matter where it would lead us. As the months turned into a year, the transformation in our relationship became apparent. Sarah and I were navigating a new normal, one forged through honesty, hard work, and a willingness to confront the past. Our sessions with the therapist became a cornerstone of our healing process, providing a safe space to air grievances and explore the underlying issues that had contributed to Sarah's infidelity. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were days when I felt anger bubbling up unexpectedly, remembrances of the betrayal surfacing like unwelcome guests, but Sarah was patient during those moments. She listened, validated my feelings, and took responsibility for her actions without defensiveness. This openness helped foster a sense of trust I hadn't felt in a long time. One afternoon, while we were preparing dinner together, a small yet significant moment occurred. I was chopping vegetables when Sarah walked up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "I love this," she said, her head resting on my shoulder. "I love us." I paused, allowing the warmth of her words to wash over me. "Me too," I replied, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. In that moment, I realized how far we had come. The intimacy we were rebuilding wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. It was a testament to our commitment to each other and the growth we had experienced. As spring approached, we decided to take a weekend trip to a cabin in the mountains, something we had talked about before the betrayal. I felt nervous about stepping into a space filled with memories while also knowing it could be a pivotal moment for us. We packed our bags, eager to escape the city and spend time in nature. Arriving at the cabin, the beauty of the surroundings took my breath away. Lush trees enveloped us and the crisp mountain air felt refreshing. We spent our days hiking, exploring, and reconnecting. At night, we sat by the fire, sharing stories, laughter, and some of the most profound conversations we had ever had. One evening, as we gazed at the stars, I turned to Sarah. "Do you remember when we used to dream about our future?" I asked, recalling the time before everything fell apart. "Of course," she replied softly, her eyes filled with a mix of nostalgia and hope. "I still dream about it, and I want us to get back to that place together." I felt a surge of emotion. "Me too, I want to build our future, but I need to know we're both committed to making it work. I can't go through the pain of betrayal again." She took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I promise I'm committed to you. I've learned so much about myself and what I want. You're my priority now." Her sincerity resonated deeply within me. I knew that while the road ahead wouldn't be easy, we were both willing to do the necessary work. We had faced the darkness together, and now it was time to embrace the light. As we returned home from our trip, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Our relationship was changing, evolving into something stronger than before. We continued attending therapy, delving deeper into our emotional landscape, and learning how to communicate effectively. We built new rituals, like sharing our weekly highs and lows over dinner, which became a cornerstone of our reconnection. Over time, I began to trust Sarah again. I found joy in the little moments, laughing together at a movie, cooking dinner, or simply sharing a quiet evening on the couch. The love we were rebuilding felt different, more resilient, as if it had been tempered in the fires of hardship. As summer approached, I realized I was ready to take the next step in our journey. One evening, while we were walking along a nearby river, I stopped and faced her. "Sarah, I've been thinking a lot about our future," I said, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I want us to take the next step. I want to build a life together, and I want to start a family," I replied, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I need to know that we're both on the same page, that we're fully committed to each other." Her face lit up and tears glistened in her eyes. "I want that too. I've always wanted that with you. I'm ready, and I promise to do everything I can to make it work." In that moment, I felt a wave of happiness wash over me. I had taken the leap of faith, and she was right there with me, ready to embrace whatever was to come. It didn't mean the past was completely erased, but it was a testament to our growth and the strength of our bond. As I held her in my arms, I realized that love is not just a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment to show up for each other, to work through challenges, and to grow together. We had faced the darkest days of our relationship, but we had emerged stronger, ready to face the future hand in hand. Looking back, I learned that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of love. Sometimes, it can be the catalyst for growth and a deeper understanding of what it means to truly be committed to one another. And so, we stepped forward into our new life, armed with lessons of the past and a shared vision for the future, ready to embrace whatever came next.